She was left alone on Christmas blind date until a single dad sat with her and did the unthinkable. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Nora Sullivan sat at table 12 in the Evergreen Room on December 22nd at 7 o'clock sharp, wearing the emerald dress she'd bought for a rehearsal dinner that never happened 3 years ago. And she was about 5 seconds from faking a family emergency and bolting before anyone realized she absolutely did not belong in a place this fancy. The restaurant smelled like expensive wine and Christmas candles, all exposed brick and couples who looked like they'd never checked their bank account before ordering appetizers. And Nora's phone kept lighting up with texts from her best friend Paige saying, "You better actually be there. Marcus is perfect for you. Stop overthinking this." Here's the thing about losing your fiance 3 days before Christmas. Every December after that feels like walking through a minefield of memories. And Nora had spent 3 years avoiding dates and holiday parties and anything that required her to pretend she was okay. She checked the time for the fourth time in 3 minutes. 7:18. Marcus was late, but maybe he hit traffic. Maybe he was nervous too. Maybe this would actually be fine. And Paige was right that it was time to stop hiding from life. 3 tables over, Evan Rowe was trying to convince his 7-year-old daughter Harper that practicing conversation at a fancy restaurant was completely unnecessary, and Harper was not buying it for 1 second. "Dad, you haven't talked to a lady besides Aunt Vanessa in forever. You need to practice so when you meet someone real, you don't freeze up like you do at parent-teacher conferences." And Harper's face was dead serious in that way only second graders can pull off. Evan had brought her here because she'd begged for a special daddy-daughter dinner, and he'd never been able to say no to those eyes that looked exactly like her mom's. And now she was conducting what she called a practice date, like she was training him for the Olympics. Harper was mid-sentence about her art project when she gasped loud enough that the table next to them looked over. "Dad, oh my gosh, that's Miss Nora. That's my kindergarten teacher, Miss Nora." Evan followed her pointing finger and saw a woman sitting alone in a green dress staring at her phone like it contained bad news. And yeah, he remembered her now. The art teacher who'd let Harper paint nothing but moons for 6 months, straight after Lily died. "She let me be sad, Dad, remember? She never made me paint happy things when I wasn't happy." And Harper's voice was reverent, like she was talking about a superhero. Nora's phone lit up and Evan watched her whole face just crumble, watched her read something over and over, and Harper whispered, "Why does she look like she's going to cry?" Nora stared at Marcus's text that said, "Something came up with work, can't make it, really sorry, maybe another time," and wanted to disappear into the floor because she knew this was a mistake, knew she shouldn't have let Paige talk her into this. She was grabbing her purse when the waiter appeared holding champagne. "Compliments of your date, miss. He pre-ordered this earlier to celebrate." And his smile was so genuine it made everything worse. "He's actually not coming. I'll just pay for my water." And Nora's voice cracked on the words and the waiter said way too loud, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And every person within 3 tables turned to stare at the pathetic woman who just got stood up. Evan watched the whole thing unfold and something in his chest just snapped because this woman had saved his daughter 2 years ago. And now she was sitting there humiliated and he couldn't just do nothing. He pulled his wallet out on pure impulse and found Lily's ring still tucked inside where he'd kept it for 4 years because he couldn't figure out what else to do with it. Looked at Harper and said, "I'm about to do something really weird. Just trust me, okay?" Harper's eyes went huge, but she nodded, and Evan stood up and walked straight to Nora's table before his brain could catch up with his body. Nora was counting out cash with shaking hands when someone sat down across from her, and she looked up thinking it was the waiter, except it was a complete stranger. "This table's taken." "Well, it was. I'm leaving, actually." And the man leaned forward and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Nora, I'm so sorry I'm late. Traffic was insane coming from downtown." Nora blinked at him, totally confused. "I don't know you. You have the wrong person." And the stranger stood up fast and got even louder. "I've been planning this for weeks and I can't wait another second." Everything happened so fast Nora's brain couldn't process it. The man dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the restaurant, pulled out a ring, and the entire place went silent. "What are you doing?" Nora hissed, and he whispered only for her, Saving you. Just play along. Please, I promise I'll explain. Then announced to everyone, Nora Sullivan, will you marry me? The restaurant exploded in applause, and Nora sat frozen, staring at this lunatic holding out a gorgeous vintage ring. And he was still whispering, please just say yes. You don't deserve this humiliation. Nora heard herself say, yes, like a question, and the man slid the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly, and people were cheering and taking photos, and a little girl in a purple dress came running over. Miss Nora, Dad, you proposed to Miss Nora. Are you going to be my mom now? And Nora's stomach dropped because she recognized Harper Donovan, which meant this insane man was Harper's father from kindergarten pickup 2 years ago. The man whispered in her ear while hugging her for the crowd, I'm Evan. Harper was in your class. You let her paint moons when her mom died. I couldn't watch you sit here embarrassed. They moved to Evan's table because people kept congratulating them, and Nora grabbed his arm the second they sat down. You just proposed to a stranger in front of 60 people? What the hell were you thinking? Evan looked panicked. I saw you getting stood up and everyone staring, and you helped Harper through the worst year of her life. I just reacted. Harper was coloring completely unbothered, and Nora looked at the ring. Whose ring is this? Evan's voice dropped. My wife Lily's. She died 4 years ago tomorrow, December 23rd. I've carried it since her funeral because I didn't know what else to do with it. Nora felt tears coming because her fiancé James died 3 years ago tomorrow, December 22nd. And somehow she was wearing a dead woman's ring after a fake proposal from a widower she barely knew. Everyone thinks we're engaged now. This is probably already on social media. What's the plan? And Evan ran his hands through his hair. I have absolutely no plan. I'm really bad at this, apparently. I just propose to people without thinking. Nora laughed, and it felt good. This is the weirdest night of my entire life. They ordered food because Harper was hungry, and leaving felt harder than staying. And somewhere between apps and dinner, Nora found herself actually enjoying this bizarre situation. Evan told her about his bookstore that was struggling. Harper talked about second grade, and Nora told them about James dying 3 years ago tomorrow, how she'd been dreading tonight for weeks. Evan took her hand across the table. Tomorrow's your anniversary and you're dealing with my insanity. I'm sorry. Nora squeezed back. Honestly, this is better than spending tonight alone crying, so maybe I needed your brand of crazy. Harper yawned and Evan checked his watch. Almost 9. We should go, kiddo. And Nora felt weird panic, like she didn't want this night to end. So what do we tell people? She asked, and Evan looked as lost as she felt. Sleep on it and figure it out tomorrow? Can I get your number so we can coordinate our story? They swapped phones and Nora saved his contact, his fake fiancé, and he actually laughed. Walking to the parking lot, Harper held both their hands between them, and at Nora's car, Evan said, Thank you for going along with that. I know it was unhinged. Nora looked at the ring catching the streetlight. Thank you for the weirdest rescue ever. I'll return this tomorrow. Harper hugged her and whispered, I hope you really marry my dad. My first mom would like you. And Nora had to turn away before the kids saw her cry. She drove home in complete shock, walked into her apartment still wearing the ring, and realized a stranger just proposed to save her from embarrassment, and somehow it was the kindest thing anyone had done in 3 years. And she had no idea what happened next, but she actually wanted to find out. Nora woke up the next morning to 43 missed calls and a video of last night's proposal, racking up views on every social media platform in Asheville. Someone had tagged it, most romantic Christmas proposal ever, and the comments were going absolutely insane with heart emojis and people tagging their friends. She was still staring at her phone in complete horror when it rang with Evan's name, and she answered with, Have you seen the news? And he said, We need to talk. Like right now. Can you meet me at my bookstore? Chapter and Verse Books was this tiny indie place on the south side that smelled like old paper and coffee. And Evan was already there when Nora walked in at 9 in the morning, pacing between shelves looking like he hadn't slept. My sister Vanessa called me at 6 a.m., screaming about how I got engaged without telling her. Your friend blew up my phone asking why she didn't know. And Good Morning Asheville wants to interview us on their holiday love story segment. Nora sat down hard on a reading chair. My principal sent me a congratulations email, Half my students saw the video. This is so much bigger than I thought it would be. They stared at each other for a long minute, and Evan finally said, we have two options. Tell everyone the truth and deal with the embarrassment, or keep pretending until the attention dies down and break up quietly in a few weeks. Nora twisted the ring on her finger that she'd forgotten to take off before bed. If we come clean now, I look pathetic twice. Stood up, then fake proposed to, out of pity. I don't know if I can handle that. Evan nodded slowly. Vanessa wants to meet you. Paige apparently wants to throw an engagement party. If we do this, we're committing to a full lie. Here's what they decided sitting in that bookstore, surrounded by romance novels that felt like they were mocking the situation. Keep up the engagement for 3 weeks through the holidays, then quietly break up after New Year's. Tell their close family it started as a rescue, but they're seeing where it goes. And absolutely no lying to Harper, because neither of them could stomach that. For what it's worth, Evans said while making them coffee on the ancient machine in his office. Last night was the first time I've enjoyed myself in 4 years, so thank you for not running away, screaming. December 23rd hit both of them like a freight train, the way it did every year, and Nora drove to Riverside Cemetery at 10 in the morning to visit James's grave, like she'd done for 3 years straight. She was kneeling in the cold grass, telling him about the insane fake proposal, when she heard a little voice say, "Miss Nora?" and looked up to see Harper standing 10 feet away, holding flowers with Evan right behind her. "We're visiting my mom. She's buried over there under the oak tree. Are you visiting someone too?" And Harper's face was so open and sweet, Nora's throat closed up. They ended up spending the whole afternoon together, two broken people on the worst day of the year, finding comfort in shared grief. And Harper left drawings at both graves while Evan and Nora sat on a bench watching her. Lily died 4 years ago today, aneurysm. She was fine at breakfast and gone by dinner. I still can't wrap my head around it. And Evan's voice was raw in a way that made Nora's chest ache. She took his hand. James died 3 years ago yesterday. Heart condition nobody knew about. We were addressing wedding invitations and he just collapsed. Sometimes I still expect him to walk through my door. Christmas Eve, Evan's sister Vanessa insisted on family dinner to meet the fiancé, and Nora showed up at Evan's house terrified while he coached her at the door. Just be yourself. She's protective, but she'll love you. And if it gets weird, just squeeze my hand twice and I'll fake an emergency. Vanessa opened the door with arms crossed and eyes that could see through lies. So you're engaged after one date? That's either fate or insanity, and I'm trying to figure out which. Harper saved the moment by dragging Nora inside. Aunt Nessa, Miss Nora taught me that being sad is okay. She's the best. Stop being scary. Dinner was awkward until Harper started telling stories about kindergarten and how Miss Nora let her paint whatever she felt, and Vanessa's face softened watching her niece light up. After Harper went to bed, Vanessa cornered Nora in the kitchen. I don't know what's really happening here, but that kid hasn't been this happy since her mom died. So fake or real, just don't break her heart. Nora felt the weight of that promise settle on her shoulders. I won't. I care about her too much. Christmas morning, Nora was alone in her apartment, expecting to work through the holiday like always when her doorbell rang at 8 a.m., and Evan and Harper were standing there with hot chocolate and presents. You can't be alone on Christmas. We're your fake family now, so you're stuck with us. And Harper pushed past her into the apartment, already scoping out where to set up. They spent the day baking cookies that came out slightly burned and watching movies. And while Harper napped on the couch, Evan found Nora in the kitchen. This doesn't feel fake anymore, does it? And his voice was quiet, careful, and Nora shook her head because no, it didn't. It felt real and terrifying, and like maybe she was allowed to be happy again. I'm scared, she admitted. I lost James and it destroyed me. What if I let myself feel something for you and lose you too? Evan stepped closer. What if you don't lose me? What if we get years? They were leaning toward each other when Harper called out for water, and the moment shattered, but something had shifted between them that couldn't be unshifted. 3 days later, Nora showed up at the bookstore after school and found Evan surrounded by boxes looking absolutely wrecked. And when he saw her, he just broke down. I'm $30,000 behind on rent. The landlord's evicting me in 30 days. I'm losing Lily's dream, and I don't know how to save it. Nora didn't think, just pulled him into a hug and said, then we save it together. What do you need? That night she launched a fundraiser using their viral proposal video, called it Save Chapter and Verse Books Where Love Stories Begin, and within 1 week the community raised $15,000. Evan stared at the fundraiser page with tears streaming down his face. Why are you doing this? We're supposed to break up in 2 weeks. You don't owe me anything. Nora grabbed his hands. You saved me from the worst night of my life. Let me save your bookstore. That's what people who care about each other do. New Year's Eve, they were at the store organizing donations with Harper's asleep in the back office. And when midnight hit on the radio, they were standing close enough to feel each other breathing. I need to tell you something, Evan said. This stopped being pretend for me on Christmas. I'm falling for you, Nora. Nora felt panic and hope crash together in her chest. Evan, I can't. What if something happens? What if I lose you like I lost James? I can't survive that again. He cupped her face gently. What if nothing bad happens? What if we're allowed to have this? They leaned in and almost kissed, but Harper woke up calling for them, and the moment broke, left them standing there with unfinished feelings hanging in the air like smoke. The next morning, Marcus showed up at Nora's school looking sheepish. I saw the proposal video. I'm sorry I bailed. I got scared, but I'm ready now. Can we try again? Nora stared at him like he was speaking another language. You're 3 weeks too late. Marcus gestured at her hand. But you're not really engaged, right? That guy proposed after 1 date? That's crazy, so we could still give this a shot? Nora's principal walked by right then. Nora, your fiancé's here. And Nora turned to see Evan in the hallway holding lunch with Harper next to him. Marcus followed her gaze. That's him? That's the guy? And Nora had a choice right there. Tell Marcus it was all fake and safe, or claim Evan for real and terrifying. She walked straight to Evan and kissed him in front of everyone. Students gasping, teachers staring, and when she pulled back, Evan's eyes were wide. What was that for? He whispered, and Nora smiled. I'm done pretending this is pretend. I'm all in if you are. Harper squealed loud enough that the whole hallway heard. Does this mean you're really going to be my mom? And Nora knelt down. Yeah, baby, if that's okay with you, I really am. Evan stood in the school hallway completely frozen after Nora just kissed him in front of half the staff and a dozen students. And Harper was jumping up and down screaming, does this mean you're really going to be my mom now? While Marcus, the ex-blind date, backed away slowly, like he just witnessed something way above his pay grade. Nora pulled back from the kiss with her face bright red, but her eyes absolutely sure. I'm done pretending this is pretend. I'm all in if you are. And Evan felt something in his chest that had been locked up for 4 years just crack wide open. They ended up in Evan's truck in the school parking lot 20 minutes later because Harper had convinced the principal to let her leave early for a family emergency, which apparently now included Nora. And the three of them sat there trying to figure out what the hell happened to their lives in 3 weeks. So we're really doing this? Evan asked, and his hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Like actual dating, not fake engaged, real feelings involved. Nora reached over and laced her fingers through his. Real feelings, terrifying feelings. The kind that make me want to run away and stay forever at the same time. Harper piped up from the back seat with that serious face she got when something really mattered. My mom left me letters for big stuff. Dad has them in a box under his bed. There's one that says, when Daddy starts dating again, and I want to open it tonight. Evan's eyes met Nora's in the rearview mirror, and she saw the fear there mixed with hope, saw him wrestling with whether it was too soon or too much, and she nodded slowly. Okay, baby, we can open it when we get home, but only if you're really ready. That night in Evan's living room, Harper sat cross-legged on the carpet, carefully unsealing the envelope with Lily's handwriting across the front, her little fingers trembling slightly, and Nora held Evan's hand so tight she was probably cutting off his circulation, but he didn't complain. Harper's voice reading out loud absolutely destroyed all three of them. Dear Harper, if you're reading this, it means Daddy found someone special. And sweetheart, I'm so happy. Loving someone new doesn't erase me. Your heart is big enough for both of us. Harper had to stop and wipe her eyes before continuing. Make sure she knows she's adding to our family, not replacing anyone. I'll always be your first mom, but she gets to be your everyday mom. And tell Daddy I said stop feeling guilty about being happy. Love doesn't run out. It just grows bigger to make room for everyone. Love always, Mommy. Nora was full on sobbing by the end, mascara running down her face in black streaks, and Harper climbed into her lap like she weighed nothing. So you're my bonus mom now? I get my first mom in heaven, and you here with me? Nora kissed the top of her head and breathed in that kid shampoo smell. Yeah, baby, you get both of us. Your heart's big enough for all of it. Evan pulled them both into a hug, and they sat there on the floor surrounded by Lily's letters and James's memory. And somehow it felt right instead of wrong, like two broken families figuring out how to be whole together. 2 days later, Nora and Evan decided to come clean about the whole story, posted a video sitting on the bookstore couch, explaining everything from the blind date disaster to the panic proposal to falling in love for real, and they fully expected people to call them liars or attention seekers, but instead the comments were overwhelmingly beautiful. This is more romantic than if it was planned, one person wrote, and love finds you when you're brave enough to help someone else. And y'all are proof that sometimes the messiest beginnings make the best stories. The bookstore fundraiser that had stalled at $15,000 suddenly jumped to $34,000 in 2 days, and Evan just stared at his laptop screen like the numbers didn't make sense. People are donating more because we told the truth, he kept saying over and over, and Nora laughed while updating the bookstore's Instagram with photos of them organizing donations. Turns out honesty's pretty popular. Who knew? And she kissed his cheek while Harper photo bombed in the background, making ridiculous faces. 3 weeks after the school hallway kiss, Nora took Evan to meet James's parents for the first time, and she was so terrified she threw up twice before they left the house. They're gonna think I'm betraying him. They're gonna hate me for moving on. But Evan just held her hair back and rubbed her shoulders. Or they're gonna be grateful you're finally living again. James's mom, Patricia, opened the door, and the second she saw Nora, her face crumpled, pulled her into a hug that lasted a full minute before even acknowledging Evan was there. We've missed you so much. You disappeared on us, and we understood, but we missed you. And then she turned to Evan and hugged him too. Thank you for bringing our girl back to us, for making her smile again. James's dad, Michael, shook Evan's hand firm and long. Our son would want this. He'd want Nora laughing and living. You have our blessing, and then some. Before they left, Patricia pressed James's watch into Nora's hands. Give this to Evan. Jamie would want him to have it, one widower to another. 4 months later, on a warm April evening, Evan told Nora he needed help with inventory at the bookstore after closing, and when she walked in expecting to organize boxes, she found the entire place lit up with candles, and Evan standing by the poetry section in his good shirt holding Lily's ring. I proposed to you once to save you from embarrassment in front of a room full of strangers. Tonight I'm asking because I can't imagine my life without you in it. And his voice shook but didn't break. Nora Sullivan, for real this time, with no audience and no panic and no cameras. Will you marry me? Will you let Harper and me be your family? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving you're exactly enough? Nora was nodding before he even finished the question. Yes, oh my God. Yes, for real this time, I mean every word. And he slid the resize ring onto her finger, and it fit like it was always meant to be there. Harper burst out from behind the self-help section, where she'd been hiding with Vanessa's phone recording everything. I got it all on video, and this one's way better than the restaurant because nobody's crying from embarrassment. They got married 5 months later in September, right there in the bookstore, surrounded by every book that had ever meant something to either of them. And Harper was maid of honor in a purple dress, carrying framed photos of both Lily and James down the aisle, because everyone agreed they both deserved to be there. Evan's vows made the entire room cry. You taught Harper and me that love doesn't replace it. Adds, Lily will always be Harper's first mom, but you're her forever mom, you're her bedtime stories and scraped knee kisser, and the person who shows up every single day. Thank you for choosing us when you could have run. Nora's voice broke 4 times reading hers. You saved me on December 22nd when I thought I'd never feel anything but humiliation again. And then you saved me every day after by showing me I was allowed to hope. James taught me what love looked like, and you taught me I could find it twice in one lifetime. Harper read a poem she'd written herself about having two moms, one watching from heaven and one making her lunch, and there wasn't a single dry eye anywhere in the bookstore. At the reception, Paige grabbed the microphone, glowing with excitement and holding a glass of champagne. I set Nora up on that disastrous blind date, so technically I'm responsible for this entire love story, which means free books for life, right? And everyone laughed because honestly, yeah, the terrible blind date ended up being the best thing that ever happened. 1 year later, Nora and Evan sat at table 12 in the Evergreen Room for their anniversary. Same spot where everything imploded and rebuilt. And the waiter who'd witnessed the original proposal recognized them immediately. The proposal couple! I knew you'd make it. That was the craziest night of my entire career. And he brought them free champagne with a wink. Evan squeezed Nora's hand across the table. Best fake proposal of my life. And Nora grinned. Best real marriage of mine. Under the table, her free hand rested on the small bump, just starting to show. Their secret for another few weeks. And when Evan's eyes followed her movement, his whole face transformed into pure joy. Sometimes being left alone is just the universe clearing space for the right person to finally sit down. Nora thought being stood up was rock bottom, but it was actually the launch pad to everything beautiful that came after. Evan thought saving a stranger was a random impulse, but it was really 4 years of grief finally finding its purpose. And Harper learned the most important lesson of all, that families grow and hearts expand, and loving someone new doesn't mean forgetting someone old. If you've ever been left waiting and thought that was your ending, it's not. It's just your beginning wearing a disguise. Hit subscribe if this reminded you that sometimes the worst nights turn into the best lives, and that being stood up might be the universe saying, hold on, I've got someone way better coming your way. Thanks for being here with us and believing love gets a second chance.